Phil Wickham, welcome.
Thank you. It's so good to be here.
One of my favorite things to do now that we do this Zoom stuff is to have you pivot your camera around and show me your
Oh yeah.
digs.
Yeah. Well, I finally, it's not much to speak of, but I got like a little writing room for the first time in my life. We moved from Carlsbad, California to Encinitas, California, which, man, I guess it'd be like moving. I'm trying to think of the Seattle area. It'd be like moving from Bremerton to Tacoma. Is that, I don't know if that's what it'd be like at all. Those are just the first two places I thought of.
Um,
All right.
that's impressive.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. I've been up there quite a bit. Okay, so this is my little writing room. I put a little, there's like a bed nook back there. It's got a full-size bed. That's for like when guys come to town to work on some songs and write, they have a little private place. Here's my bookshelf. Let's see, what do I got? I got some Lord of the Rings over there. I've got a couple Bibles, got Sherlock Holmes. I love this lamp. It's from Blue Dot. Have you heard of Blue Dot?
No, tell us.
It's just like you spend a little too much for stuff that's supposed to be cool, but I don't even know if it is. And then here's my look at how look at how ugly that is right now. That's kind of messy. That's where I make my little demos and stuff, and that's my computer and my speakers. Got my piano over here, little TV vibes. So it's my little writing room, but it's got a separate entrance. It's above the garage, and I've got 4 kids. So a separate entrance above the garage that they just can't burst into and throw Play-Doh at my face is really helpful, you know?
Yeah.
So especially this year, because whenever you're watching this is 2020 now. So there's been a lot of home situation, you know, like a lot of Zoom calls, a lot of online recording things, we've been working on a new record this year. So this place has been a godsend for sure.
4 kids, remind me their ages.
9. It's easy because they're all in a place where it's all odds right now. So 9, 7, 5, and 3. Penelope, Mabel, Lottie, and Henry. So 3 girls and a boy.
Okay, that is just the name lottery right there.
Good name. Good names. Penelope, she's a really good, she's 9 years old, but she just like auditioned. She's been dancing since she was like 2, you know, but she just did her auditions for the competition team. And she like nailed. She's gonna be in a tap solo. She's in a ballet trio thing. She's in a jazz thing. So she's killing it at dance. Mabel's like, man, she's like this brilliant little book reading artist. She's like a little elf floating around the house. It's like, what are you even doing right now? I don't even know what she's up to. She just kind of like, I see her fuzzy head just blowing around. And Lottie's the Joker. She's like, if there's a person's face, if there's a 5-year-old's face next to the term Netflix and chill, then Lottie would be right there. She's such a professional relaxer. And then Henry, I'm curious. Yeah, Henry's 3. He just wants to be Spider-Man and hang out. And I go out on runs. You know, we live fairly close to the coast, so I'll bring the jog stroller out. It's like his favorite thing. Like get in the stroller, watch the trains going by. He pretend he's flying in the stroller. You know, he's such a boy. He's a boy all the way through, and which, you know, right now is a little bit crazy because he's a 3-year-old. But I'm excited for what that means for the future.
I love it because the minute you start naming them and talking about what makes them individually unique, I see all your dad pride pop out, and I love it because it's
proud.
like, I know, and we could sit here and talk about your catalog of music, the songs you've written and all of that, and we will, but I like how you light up when you talk about your kids.
Well, they're amazing, but also they're so annoying. And so you know what I mean? By annoying, I just mean it's just constant. And so anytime, I just feel like I've worked so much harder at being a dad than being a musician. Like it's so much more work. Do you know what I mean? Like daily in there, or else if you're not daily in it and being so intentional, then you go to bed at night thinking like, oh, I messed up. You know what I mean? It's like that dad inside. You're like, I could have been more patient then, or I wish I would have just like gotten off the phone and been there for him at that moment, you know? And so with music, it's like, it's fun. And there's moments when it's work, you know, it's like some of the long flights not this year, but in times, the long flights, travel, being away from home. But there's a lot of hurry up and wait in what I do, and there's a lot of like, writing a song is fun for me. And kids are fun, but also probably more work than they are fun. And so maybe that's why it's like, hey, you're becoming cool little humans. And this is like from an investment from your mom and I, showing you what it means to be good. I think maybe that's a big part of it, is that it takes up so much of my brain space and my energy that it's like, yes, I'm proud of this because it's been a lot of work.
I saw an Instagram post from a few months ago. You took them all fishing.
I took my two oldest. So yeah, the two younger, because it's like a 7-hour drive. We went up to the east side of, man, what are those, the sand, oh my goodness, the big, huge mountain range in California where I live. I can't even think. The sand, you guys are going to laugh at me. I can't think of what it is. But it's like where Mount Whitney is, a huge mountain. We were up about 9,000 feet. We camped out in tents for about 4 nights. So, but even the drive, 7-hour drive with someone under 6 years old, you're asking for it. And so I took my two oldest, who are 9 and 7, and man, it's going to be a yearly thing. Like no phone reception, beautiful land, beautiful lake, creek running down through the campsite. I mean, it was just like amazing, especially when we went. It was kind of like a pretty locked down well, you're in Seattle too, so on the West Coast, pretty locked down when we went, and so to go up there and get away from just being in the house all the time was awesome.
I bet they bring up memories from it already. What do they?
Oh yeah.
What do they talk about? What stood out to them?
I think sleeping in the tent was a big deal. You know what I mean? Because they had never done that before, and we were in a really old tent. It was the tent that because I'm not a camper. I'm like, I mean, I don't know if you can tell. I'm very like. I'm not even I've grown up by the beach my whole life in San Diego, but if I could choose, I'd rather be at the coffee shop overlooking the beach than actually in the sand and getting you know what I mean? Like I'm like that. I'm like, I'll stay clean kind of guy. And so, so going camping, I'm like, man, I know this is going to be a great investment with my kids, but it's going to be fun. And it was so, I mean, I loved it. It was so fun. But we were in this tent that my father-in-law, so I went up with my father-in-law. He's been going to this campsite since he was my kid's age. And then he brought my wife up there and then her brother and sister. And so it's this family tradition where their family's been going up for like 50 years. And so we slept in the same tent that he and my mother-in-law slept in right after they got married. So it's like a 40-year-old tent. And it's very rickety. Like if we had any weather, like we would be using the tent as a sleeping bag because it would be on top of us, like one gust of wind and the whole tent was like so crazy around us. But we made it fun, like we were just we wake up and like, what is that? It's like, oh, it's just the tent, but they would laugh and we'd go back to sleep. So I think just being cozy in there, and we read, I try to we're reading through books every night. And so like having the lantern and reading through books, and it's just a great memory.
I love it. So we were talking a bit about how you notice unique things about each of your 4 kids, right? And who they're becoming. When you were young and began to realize you had this musical gifting, was it your parents or who was it in your life that really recognized and nurtured it? And it was sort of a mile marking moment for you with music?
Well, I grew up in a family, I'm so blessed. My parents are still together. My dad's still on staff as a worship pastor at a church. He's been on staff at churches as a worship leader my whole life. And so I grew up with music and Jesus. And so when we moved from one area of the county to another, kind of had, my friends weren't close by. So I picked up guitar. My dad taught me how to play. That was when I was, I must have been 13, maybe 12 years old. And I loved it right away, but I for sure didn't think this is what I had in me to do for the next 3 decades. But then as I played so much, and the way I learned guitar was through learning worship songs, because those are all the songs I knew from my parents playing. Learned worship songs, so I had no idea I was like worship leader in training. I was just loving guitar, and those were the only chord charts we had in the house. And then my youth pastor, and when I was in junior high, he found out, because him and my dad were on staff at the church together, he found out I was learning how to play guitar. I could sing a little bit. So he threw me on stage, but still, I didn't really, it was still just felt like, wow, what a cool thing I get to do once in a while. And I would say it was in high school. There's a man named Joey Baran, he's now a pastor of a church in Orange County. But he was one of these guys that, like, he won this surf competition called the Pipeline Masters back in the 80s, which is a huge. If that's in Hawaii, it's a big surf competition. You're on the front cover of Surfer magazine if you win that. So in the 80s, he was this huge surfer, and then had this huge come to Jesus. Like, he was a party animal, the whole thing. Came to Jesus, became an evangelist, started a kind of a young adult worship night, Bible teaching night at this church in Orange County, and he found me in my little youth group. And he said, hey, like, I think you got something special. Will you come up and be one of the leaders for this? And it's interesting because there's other leaders too that, like Jeremy Camp was around Southern California. He would lead for this thing, and other guys too. And it grew to this from, like, I don't know, in this small room with, I don't know, 50 college kids to the full big sanctuary packed with 2,500 young people singing for like an hour and a half. And I started writing songs. That's when I started writing songs from that that specific ministry to sing. And it was in that time through Joey's encouragement. He had some words just felt like straight from the Lord. I still remember some really specific things about writing songs that are going to be translated into other languages, and to being a worship leader, not just for one church, but for churches at large in America. He would say big things like that to me, and I'd just be like, Joey, like, you're such a hype man, like, give me a break, you know. And I think that's crazy, because it's kind of become what's happened. These songs that I write for my church have gone on to become songs that churches all over the world sing, and it's just like, now that it's like, whoa, that happening. It's like, I don't say it to, like, it's not a false thing. It's so much more than I could have ever, like, thought or I tried to achieve. It's just so evidently the grace of God working through a guy who really messes up a lot. But I'm willing. I love writing songs for my church, and it's amazing that these songs go around. So I would say around 16, 17, as I was writing songs that started going into other churches, I was thinking, well, this is something I want to chase for as long as I can.
Well, before we get to Battle Belongs, which I'm going to have you play in just a second, one other thought about, as I'm listening to your story, I'm thinking what a gift it was that you had so many years to practice. And before all the social media and the YouTube where someone could film it, and like when you're just learning your chords or whatever, it's up for people to comment something negative, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, to squash you. Whereas if someone is 17 right now and they're kind of hearing you and they're inspired and they want to get good at this, but you know how many years it takes to practice, how would you encourage someone in this social media age, like, that it's okay to be terrible at something for a long time?
That's for sure. It's okay to be terrible at something for a long time. So my answer, just from my own experience, is all, like, I'm not saying I'm a better Christian because of this, or not that this is the only way to do things. But I never, like, had dreams as far as I was young. I mean, I had dreams about, like, oh, that'd be cool, one day I could do that, but it wasn't like the end goal. And whenever it was, I had people around me kind of being like, hey, don't lose sight of how special this is right now. You've got 20 high school kids in this home fellowship that want to meet with Jesus, and you get to lead them, you know. And so I think a huge thing to see, to let God and to trust in God's timing, and to let Him open the doors when it's the right time, to not try to push through anything, to not get depressed because, man, I started when I was 16 and I'm 21 now and I'm still not signed. I'm still not on tour with Hillsong United, you know. For me, I started leading worship when I was 12, and then it was not till 12 years later where I signed, not till I was 22, I signed with a record label. But even then, it probably wasn't until I was 24 till I actually, like, moved out of my parents' house. You know what I mean? Like, I was still just trying to make it work. And then when I was maybe 27, the song "This Amazing Grace" kind of really connected, and that was probably when things really changed on a different level for me. But that's a long time. But I would just say there's this thing that my pastor said to me forever ago, because I remember thinking like, asking him, what do you think I should do? And I've got these songs, maybe I should record them. And he just said this phrase, it's called bloom where you're planted. And that means just get your roots in wherever God has you, and the people that God have in front of you, and the thing you have to do in your heart. Like, don't kind of look way outside all of that to say, how do I get there? But say, okay, what's right in front of me? How do I love people and serve God with the thing God has put in my heart to do, and maybe, and so all you can do is what's in front of you. It's like, okay, well, my church, right now it's different in lots of states. We're in 2020, but speaking as a whole, in faith that things are going to open up in the future. So I'm sure you're probably watching the future. Your church, I'm sure, has 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 ministries that would love a young worship leader to come in with a willing, humble spirit, ready to serve. Whether it's like the drug and alcohol ministry, or the high school, or the kids area, or maybe there's needing a backup guitar up at the sanctuary. And so I guess I'm saying is like, be absolutely 100% ready to serve. Being a worship leader is about putting your artistry and yourself and your own ambitions and desires way behind this idea of serving the church. If you want to be a singer-songwriter, then like you're saying, I want to express my heart and what God has put on me. I want people to see that. That's how I'm going to worship God. But if you're saying, I want to be a worship leader, I want to do it like Hillsong United and Bethel and Chris Tomlin. And then what you're really saying is, I want to put myself last and just be available and try to do it with as much excellence as possible. And it's amazing as you become excellent in the place God has given you. I assure you, if you are supposed to be other places than that, God will open up doors.
Wow, that's powerful. I want to put myself last, is what you're really saying.
That's what I've been really focused on lately as a worship leader. You really stop becoming an artist first, and you become a minister first, which means to serve, which means to, how do I love the people in front of me the best? Even if it means playing songs I don't love, even if it means having a band that sounds not as cool as I would like, even if it means slowing everything down, or saying, okay, we can't have drums because their church, it makes it a big deal that we have drums in here, they're too loud, like, then we won't do drums. Like, even if I really want, you know what I mean? It's just, how do I serve so that people can meet with Jesus? Not how do I show them what cool music is, or how do I show them how great I can sing. It's like, all that is behind, how do I bring these people to the feet of Jesus with what God has equipped me with, and that's the mindset that I think if you learn that, the quicker you learn that, I think the quicker more doors will open for you.
Well, speaking of that posture of your heart, why don't you talk to us about Battle Belongs, and then go ahead and pick up that guitar.
Yeah. Man, I love this song. I love it. It really just pumped my spirit up every time I sing it. It's been kind of like my little personal spiritual battle cry over the last year or so. It was written in 2019, and it began this is funny. Didn't come out of some really intense moment in my life. It came. I was FaceTiming with my buddy Brian Johnson, who's at Bethel, and he said, "Hey man, I got an idea for a song." I was like, "Tell me." He's like, "Well, my buddy got a tattoo, and it says it says I fight on my knees." And I'm like, "That's amazing! Like, we got to use that." He's like, "Yeah." He said, "We can totally use it." And so literally within about 2 minutes, I just said, "When I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high." This chorus just kind of spilled out. And I immediately thought, wow, there's something special in this declaration. And we got to like treat the verse. We got to treat it really, really well, because I think there's something special to be said here. And so I started looking over scriptures of all the battles that it talks about being fought in the Old Testament, and I landed on this scripture in 2 Chronicles 20. And as I read it, I thought, oh yeah, I love this story. I haven't thought about it in so long, because it speaks to all of us, but it also has a really special message for the worship leader, because it shows you how worship can be a weapon against the darkness. But it's this story of when these several nations have amassed this huge army to come against the people of God, the people of Judah, And the king of Judah at the time, his name is Jehoshaphat. And when he learns about this conglomeration of nations that have created this huge army, it is terrifying, because they're violent, and it's impossible without the help of God for anybody to survive this attack. I mean, it's just 100 to 1 kind of situation. And so Jehoshaphat goes before the Lord and says, and appeals to God's grace and his promises that you said this, you've done this in the past, So we come to you because you are the only one that can help us. And I love the end of that prayer. I mean, it reminds me of myself. It's the end of the prayer says, we do not know what to do, but our eyes are on you. Like we have no plan. There's no, like, because it's helpless. And then God speaks through this Levite man. God speaks to this man, and he says, this is what the Lord says. Today you will not have to fight in this battle. Stand firm and hold your position and see the salvation of the Lord on your behalf. And that's a huge, how amazing. We read that and think, oh, the Lord came through. But then you put yourself in their situation. And though that was a man speaking the word of the Lord, but it's not like it had happened yet. There was still an army coming. So it took this huge amount of faith. It took a huge amount of faith to believe in that promise and to trust God that he really did speak. And I can imagine that situation be like, okay, cool. Hopefully God is wanting to do that, but let's get a plan together anyway. Like, let's still put our strongest men up front. Let's still, but what they did is they leaned into the faithfulness of that promise. And what Jehoshaphat said is like, okay, because the Lord said we will not fight. Instead, we will worship. And so instead of sending the strongest military in the front lines, they had all their priests act as if they were about to walk into the presence of God. They put on the holiest robes, clean themselves, all the rituals they needed to do. And all the priests and the worship leaders went before this huge army and started singing, "Holy is the Lord, for his steadfast love endures forever." And as they worshiped in the face of the enemy, God moved. And there was this confusion in there's confusion in the camp of the enemy army coming their way, and they all sort of fighting against each other, and they were routed and they fled. And God did this incredible, miraculous thing on behalf of his people. And so there's several things we can take from that. This idea that God is still doing that for us today. I would say that would be our prayer if we really were honest with ourselves. The enemy of sin and death is something we cannot fight against. It is inevitable. Like we will always be sinners in need of a savior, and we'll always 100%, all of us are going to die, and Jesus came and he, in a way, said the same thing: stand firm, hold your position, and see the salvation of the Lord on your behalf. And Jesus showed us the salvation of the Lord on the cross and through the empty grave, so that we can live in victory and hope today. But also for us, it's not just sitting back and saying, well, Jesus did it all, I can do whatever I want. But it's going to take faith on our part to step into a life that reflects what Jesus has done for us. Step into a life that believes what he has done and believes that the kingdom of heaven is now. So that's the whole story. And I talked for a long time, but I love that story. I love what it means for us. And after kind of gleaning through that whole book, or that whole story, the verses of this song came out. And this is Battle Belongs. When all I see is the battle, you see my victory. When all I see is the mountain, you see a mountain move. And as I walk through the shadow, your love surrounds me. There's nothing to fear now, for I am safe with you. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees, with my hands lifted high. Oh God, battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet, I sing through the night. Oh God, battle belongs to you. And if you are for me, Who can be against me? Yeah. For Jesus, there's nothing impossible for you. When all I see are the ashes, you see the beauty. Thank you, God. When all I see is the cross, God, you see the empty tomb. So when I fight on my knees with my head lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I lay at your feet, I sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadow, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. An almighty fortress, you go before us. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. You shine in the shadow, you win every battle. Nothing can stand against the power of our God. So when I fight, I'll fight on my knees with my hands lifted high. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. Every fear I'll lay at your feet. I'll sing through the night. Oh God, the battle belongs to you. And oh God, the battle belongs to you.
Thank you.
Yes, of course.
Well, that's an anthem right there. Phil, thank you for your time. Let's do this again, and just really appreciate everything that you shared with us today. So on behalf of the station, thank you so much.
Thank you, Sarah. So good to be with you guys, and praying for safety and health and blessing for y'all.